Imagine you wake up tomorrow and crude oil suddenly disappears. At first, you might think, okay, no petrol, that's bad, but not too bad. But then the problems get much bigger. Cars, buses, lorries, ships, and planes would struggle to move. Factories would lose important materials. Farmers would find it harder to produce and transport food. Hospitals and emergency services would lose backup fuel and supplies. And many everyday products, from plastic to phones, would become much harder to make. Of course, the world wouldn't run out instantly because hundreds of countries keep emergency oil supplies. But if crude oil disappeared permanently, the shock would be enormous. The world wouldn't just slow down, it would almost freeze. Today, we talk a lot about electric cars, solar panels, wind turbines, and clean energy. And yes, the world is changing. But here's the big surprise. Even today, the world still uses around 100 million barrels of oil every single day. So crude oil isn't just some old-fashioned fuel from the past. It's still one of the hidden engines of the modern world. But why? Let's find out. One thought at a time. But first, what is crude oil? Crude oil is a thick, dark liquid found deep underground or under the seabed. It is called a fossil fuel because it was formed from the remains of ancient living organisms. Millions of years ago, tiny marine creatures such as algae, plankton, and small sea creatures lived in ancient oceans. When they died, their remains sank to the seabed. Over time, they were buried under layers of mud, sand, and rock. Then, over millions of years, heat and pressure slowly transformed those remains into oil and natural gas. But crude oil itself isn't very useful straight from the ground. You can't simply pump it out and pour it into a car. First, it has to be sent to a refinery. A refinery is like a giant factory that separates crude oil using fractional distillation into useful products. Some products become transport fuels like petrol and diesel and jet fuel. Some become industrial materials like lubricants for engines, fuel oil for ships and factories, and bitumen for roads. And some become chemical ingredients used to make plastic, paints, medicine, clothes, packaging, and thousands of everyday products that you and me use all the time. Here's a strange refinery fact. One standard barrel of crude oil is 42 gallons, but after refining, it can produce about 45 gallons of petroleum products. That sounds impossible, but it happens because refining changes the density of the materials. It's a bit like popcorn. A small, dense corn kernel becomes bigger when it pops. So crude oil isn't just fuel, it's a starting ingredient for modern life. And not all crude oil is the same. Some oil is light, which makes it easier to turn. Some oil is heavy, which makes it thicker and harder to refine. Some oil is sweet because it has less sulfur, whereas some is called sour because it has more sulfur and needs extra processing. So oil isn't one simple thing, it's a whole global system. Now, the biggest reason crude oil is still important is transport. Most of the world's cars, vans, lorries, buses, ships, and planes still depend on oil-based fuels. Electric cars are growing very quickly. In 2024, more than 17 million electric cars sold worldwide. In 2025, electric car sales surged above 20 million. That is a huge change. Electric cars are already reducing the amount of petrol the world needs. But here's the key point. Even if millions of new cars are electric, the world still has hundreds of millions of petrol and diesel vehicles already on the road. And many types of transport are much harder to electrify. A small electric car is possible, but think about long-distance transport, like cargo ships crossing oceans, passenger planes flying between countries, or lorries carrying food overnight. Think about heavy-duty work, like tractors, mining trucks, and construction machines. And think about an emergency and military transport, like ambulances, fire engines, military desks, and naval ships. Many of these still rely on oil because oil-based fuels are extremely energy dense. That means a small amount of fuel can store a huge amount of energy. This is especially important for planes. An airplane needs enough energy to fly hundreds or thousands of miles, but the fuel mustn't be too heavy. Batteries are improving, but for large passenger aircraft, battery power is still very difficult to use at scale because batteries are heavily compared with jet fuel. So even in a greener world, crude oil still plays a massive role in moving people and goods. Now, when people hear the word oil, they usually think of petrol stations, but crude oil is also used to make petrochemicals. Petrochemicals are chemicals made from oil and gas, and they're used in thousands of products. Some are used in plastic and packaging, such as plastic bottles, food wrappers, containers, pipes, and protective packaging. Some are used in clothing and personal items, such as polyester clothes, jackets, trainers, toothbrushes, combs, and school bags. Some are used in technology and homes, such as phone cases, TV remotes, and chargers. And some are used in medicine and safety, such as syringes, gloves, and hospital equipment. Just look around your room. Your chair, your clothes, your charger, your headphone, your pens, your school bag, your TV remote, and your trainers may all contain materials connected to oil. This is one of the biggest reasons oil is hard to replace. It's not just burned for energy. It's used for hundreds of everyday products that are lying around your house. In fact, by 2030, more than 1 in every 6 barrels of oil could be linked to polymers and synthetic fibers. That means the future of oil may not only be it could also be plastic, packaging, clothes, chemicals, and materials. That doesn't mean oil-based products are always good. Plastic pollution is a huge problem, but it does show why oil is so deeply connected to everyday life. Even if every car became electric tomorrow, the world would still need oil for many industrial products. Part 4. Oil prices don't only affect petrol, they can affect the price of almost everything. Why? Because almost everything has to be transported, produced, packaged, cooled, or delivered. Food travels from farms to factories, then to warehouses, supermarkets, and finally to our homes. Clothes and electronics are often made in one country, shipped across oceans, moved by lorries, stored in warehouses, and delivered to shops or homes. Factories need materials, machines need lubricants, building supplies need transport, and many products need plastic packaging. So if oil becomes more expensive, transport becomes more expensive. If transport becomes more expensive, production and delivery become more expensive. And when companies face a high cost, they often increase prices. That means oil can affect food prices, airline tickets, deliveries, clothes, building materials, and many everyday. But why can oil prices move so quickly? One reason is that oil supply and demand are not easy to change in the short term. A family can't instantly replace its petrol car. An airline cannot instantly replace jet fuel. Farmer can't instantly replace tractors. And oil producers cannot instantly create millions of extra barrels overnight. So when there's a war, like the Iran war, a refinery shutdown, a weather event, or fear of future shortages, oil prices can jump really quickly. That is why oil is also a global trade and political issue. One important example is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow sea route between Iran and Oman. In 2024, around 20 million barrels of oil per day flowed through this route. That was about 1/5 of global petroleum liquids consumption. So, if tension rises near the Strait of Hormuz, like it did this year, the world pays attention. A problem in one region can affect fuel prices around the world. That is why oil isn't just an energy issue, it's also a global geopolitical issue as well. Oil can make countries rich and powerful. If a country has huge oil reserves, it can sell oil to other countries and earn billions of pounds. This money can build roads, airports, ports, cities, public services, and businesses. It can also give countries political power because countries that supply oil can influence global markets. This is why organizations like OPEC matters. When major oil producers decide to increase or reduce supply, markets can react. But oil can also create problems. Some countries become too dependent on oil money. Some economies suffer badly when oil prices crash. And in some places, oil can lead to corruption. This is sometimes called the resource curse. Oil is also important for farming and food. On the farm, diesel powers tractors, harvesters, water pumps, and other heavy machines. After food is grown, Oil is used to transport it from farms to factories, warehouses, supermarkets, restaurants, and homes. Food often needs plastic packaging, refrigerators, and cold storage. So, when oil prices rise, farming, transport, packaging, and storage can all become more expensive. That can push up food prices. Oil is also important for national security. Hospitals may need backup generators. Ambulances, fire engines, and police vehicles need fuel. Armies and navies need fuel for vehicles, aircraft, and ships. And food supply chains need lorries and storage systems to keep moving. That is why many countries keep strategic petroleum reserves. Members of the International Energy Agency are required to hold oil stocks equal to at least 90 days of net oil imports. So oil is not just about convenience, it's about keeping a country running during a crisis. Now you might ask, if oil causes pollution and climate change, why don't we just stop using it? The answer is because the world is built around oil. To replace oil, we would need to change transport systems, including cars, lorries, buses, ships, planes, and farming vehicles. We would need to change industry, including factories, chemical production, road building, mining, and manufacturing. We would need to change infrastructure, including charging networks, power grids, airports and shipports, warehouses, and supply chains. And we would need to change everyday products. That takes time, money, technology, and planning. Renewable energy is growing. Electric vehicles are growing. Batteries are improving. Governments are setting climate targets. But the world is not simply switching away from oil. It's trying to reduce dependence on oil while still keeping society running. That is the difficult part. Crude oil is useful, but it also has a major downside. When oil-based fuels are burnt, they release carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is an extremely severe greenhouse gas, which means that oil is a direct contributor to global warming. Oil can also harm the environment in other ways. During oil production, there can be spills, leaks, flaring, and damage to natural habitats. During oil use, cars, planes, ships, and factories can release pollution into the air. And after oil-based products are thrown away, plastic waste can pollute rivers, oceans, beaches, and harm wildlife. So crude oil is important, but it's also a major environmental challenge. That is why the world is investing in cleaner transport, like electric vehicles, better public transport, and sustainable aviation fuel. It's investing in cleaner energy, like solar power, wind power, battery storage, and hydrogen. And it is investing in cleaner materials, like recycling, reusable packaging, and more efficient manufacturing. The goal isn't just to find energy. The goal is to find energy that is reliable, affordable, and cleaner, the future of oil. So what happens next? Will oil disappear? Not quickly. Some forecasts say oil demand could slow down and reach a plateau around the end of this decade. That means the world may not stop increasing oil use as quickly as before. Electric vehicles, better fuel efficiency, clean energy, and climate policies could all reduce the need for oil in some areas. But other forecasts say oil demand could keep growing for decades, especially because of population growth, developing economies which need oil to survive, aviation, shipping, petrochemicals, and industrial demand. This shows that the future of oil isn't simple. Oil may become less important in some areas, like petrol cars, but it may remain very important in other areas, like planes, ships, chemicals, plastics, synthetic fibers, and heavy industry. So the future of oil may not be one sudden end, it may be a long, complicated transition. So why is crude oil still important today? Because the world still uses around 100 million barrels of oil every day. Because oil still powers transport, from cars and lorries to ships and planes. Because oil supports industry, from factories and farms to construction and manufacturing. Because oil appears in everyday products, from packaging and clothes to phones and medical equipment. Because oil prices can affect inflation, food prices, delivery costs, and airline tickets. Because oil routes like the Strait of Hormuz are important for global trade. And because countries use oil for national security and emergency planning. Crude oil isn't perfect. It causes pollution, it contributes to climate change, and it creates one of the biggest challenges of our time. But the modern world was built around it. The real question is not whether oil matters, because it clearly does. The real question is, can we move from an oil-powered world to a cleaner future without breaking the systems we depend on? That is the real story of crude oil. And that is why crude oil is still important today. If you learned something new, remember to like this, share this, and subscribe for more simple explanations of big world topics. Bye for now!